Welcome, everybody, to Who's Your Band? I am Jeffrey Paul. I am joined by Sean Morton. How are you, Sean?
Yeah, I'd be ducky if I was in my office doing this podcast, but I had to be cheap and cancel my cable. And I went with T-Mobile home internet because the tower is 700 yards from my house. But guess what happened? The tower's down right now. So that means I have no internet for like the last 24 hours.
Why did you cancel your cable?
Because it's expensive. It's $300 a month for cable and internet. And now I got it for $160.
Everybody is doing that. I want to see if our guest is doing that as well. We're going to bring him in. He is not only a singer and drummer and guitarist and a producer and the leader of the band, the Gripweeds. Okay, but he's also on this show with us. Let's give it up for Kurt Reil. Kurt, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Glad to be here, virtually glad to be here.
It's good to see you again. Kurt and I met at 101.5 FM, and I just got a little taste of his band and his background in music. And I thought he was a real interesting guy. I think he'd been perfect for the show. But a lot going on in the world, of music. So two things. Kurt, were you an Iron Maiden fan?
Not so much. Metal stuff isn't my line so much, but I'm familiar with the name.
Because the world of music lost. We lost Paul Di'Anno, who was the singer on the first two Maiden albums. 66 years old. No cause of death given, but he'd been sick for years, confined to a wheelchair, but still getting out there singing the songs. And probably the singer on a top 5 Maiden album. I think Killers was a great one.
One of the best.
Yeah, the sound changed a lot after he left the band. They were almost like kind of like a power punk band with Di'Anno, and then they became a metal band with Dickinson.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Yeah, and then this is something that Sean kind of stayed in. I wanted to get Sean's reaction and Kurt, especially from a musician point of view. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this weekend and the performances. You watched all 5.5 hours of that?
I watched everything. Yep.
Mary J. Blige and her unbelievably big legs. At some point, wear a dress.
She can definitely crack a coconut with those thighs. I'll tell you that. Right?
Listen, I love Mary J. Blige. I really do.
Yeah.
Okay, but at some time, invest in a mirror. Kurt, did you see any of the performances?
Again, I got to say no. I mean, I as you said before, I'm a musician and a studio producer, and I was working it. That's the curse of being a working musician, is you don't always get to see the show. You have to miss.
Yeah, I obviously didn't have time.
To see it. I'm sure.
Yeah, you can go online. There's a bunch of stuff that I saw. I just wanted to get Sean, what do you think of Foreigner's induction? And Kurt, this isn't, you didn't have to see the show, but don't you think there's something real sad that this is a band that should have been inducted years ago? Okay, they had been put on like a 20-year almost hiatus, like waiting list to get in, and you had no Mick Jones. You had, Sean, you saw it. How many songs did Lou Gramm actually sing?
He barely sang I Want to Know What Love Is. Yeah, Kelly Clarkson was doing that with him, I think, right?
No, I think it was Kelly Clarkson and Demi Lovato. I saw her do something.
She did one too, yeah. But she, the girl, they did very smart booking when it came to putting some of the new current singers with the people that were getting inducted.
Well, because they're going to turn this into a TV show. That's why.
Well, no, I think because in some ways, you got to remember too, some of these people are in their late 60s, 70s, even close to 80s. They're not singing the way that they normally would. I think Cher sounded fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I think Cher sounded great, but I think the Dua Lipa kind of added a little bit to that.
Yeah, I saw the Cher one, and I got to say Kurt, this is where I think you got to give an older artist credit. It didn't sound like she was singing with the track. She was definitely singing.
She was live.
Yeah, live.
Sure. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, well, That's the problem with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is it's so political, and it comes down to Jan Wenner a lot of the time, doesn't it?
Yes.
Who gets in and who doesn't, and a lot of deserving bands maybe don't get in, or it takes a long time. And by the time they get there, maybe they're not a complete band anymore. Maybe they've lost key members, and that's unfortunate. But people get older, and you got to give props to somebody who's up there still doing it, who can still do it.
Exactly. Still being able to sing. But it kind of annoys me that you have Foreigner, and like if you let them in 10 years earlier.
Right.
You have Mick Jones maybe playing. Maybe you have a little healthier Lou Gramm. Also, Frampton got in, which I was happy to see. Okay, because he kind of got like,
oh, wow.
No, he never was in, and this was the thing about it was bullshit. And we had talked about this on this show before. Sheryl Crow gets in before Frampton. Okay, last year during her induction speech, who did she say? If it wasn't for Peter Frampton, I would have never picked up a guitar. All right,
it happens every year, though. You understand this? This happened the year that Nirvana went in too. I was at that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and they had all people filling in for Kurt. And the first song was "Smells Like Teen Spirit" with Joan Jett.
Joan Jett, yeah.
And then once they did the speech, they were like, "How the hell is Joan Jett not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?" And the place goes nuts. And then what happens next year? She gets into the Hall of Fame the very, very next year. So it always happens.
But how is Joan Jett inducted into the Hall of Fame before Peter Frampton, before Pat Benatar? It's like you have to go down, kiss the ring, and then you're going to go in. Joan Jett shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame over those artists.
Sherry even said, but you think about it, she's really been an artist for 7 decades.
Who, Joan Jett?
Look how long she
Cher.
Oh, Cher, yeah, definitely.
So 7 decades she's had hits in, and she goes, and she still had no chance. I forgot who she said it was, but she goes, until he wrote a letter, and miraculously now I'm in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So it's really, it is all political.
They don't like certain kinds of music. They don't like progressive rock. They're not a big progressive rock
Very true.
Hall of Fame. So it was really something to get Yes in there. It was really something to get the Moody Blues in there because there's a bias.
Yeah, who's not in there, Kurt?
Who?
Okay, Tribe Called Quest is in there. Public Enemy is in there, and I have no. I like these as groups, but not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But who's on there, Kurt? Jethro Tull.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Yep. Because why? Because they're progressive rock.
Well, when you said that, that's exactly the first band that came to mind. And you're right; it did take a long time for Yes.
Palmer in there.
They're definitely not going in. They should. If these other bands got in, then they should get in. Also, now the big one, Sean, Ozzy and the performers.
Was it hard? I was heartbroken, literally heartbroken looking at him because that he is dying to be out there singing. And you saw him singing in his throne. And it's just like they did the cutaway scene where they kind of moved the throne. And then, so you wouldn't see it on camera or on television that, Ozzy was still in there. So they do it, the cutaway shot. It was so fucking horrible to see. But I think the performances themselves are great. I think Maynard jumped off and started. I don't know if you caught this, Jeff, but Maynard actually jumped in a little quick when they were doing Crazy Train.
Well, I'm sure they didn't have a lot of time to really perform it. I had no problem with Maynard. I mean, I didn't think
was
vocally.
The musician part of me. The musician part of me was like, oh shit, he came in early, but he was good. I thought he was okay, but I thought that listen, I'm a huge fan. I love this guy. I think he's fantastic.
I know where you're going.
Fucking Jelly Roll does not have to be on every goddamn show at this point. I understand he's probably the biggest artist on the planet right now, if you really think about it. But for fuck's sake, I'm tired of looking at him now.
And he struggled. You're gonna have to watch this guy.
That's a hard song.
He struggled during the choruses of "Mama, I'm Coming Home."
Jeff, I have sang for almost 40 years. I have a hard time singing that song, and I know my limits. And I'm not on television. You know what I mean? Like this guy, should not have sang that song. And I called it ahead of time. I was like, I know this guy. When I saw that he was going to be one of the ones for Ozzy, I said, there's no song that he's doing besides Mama, I'm Coming Home.
But you know something, and we'll get off this right after this. It was good to see at least real rock and roll being represented this year. I thought it was way overdue for Foreigner, Frampton, and Ozzy as a solo artist. So that in that regard is
and Dave
good.
Matthews and Dave Matthews.
No. Because here's the thing, like. I think it's a crime that Maiden's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Okay, they could have waited a year or two for Dave Matthews Band. Now the thing is, with Di'Anno dying, he'll never get to see it because he would have been in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with him. Clive Bird died a couple of years ago. He's the original drummer. Nico, the current drummer, had a stroke recently. You know, how many members have to die before the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, lets these legendary bands that obviously deserve to be in, let's them in.
So what's the criteria? What's the criteria to get in?
There is no criteria.
It's a board that just goes, oh, I like that, and I like that.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
I think they'll get in this year. Tom Morello, who's very influential in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, has really been pushing for Maiden. And I think they do get in. But, you would love to see Paul Di'Anno go up there with those guys. Maybe he would have been able to do like a song with them. It's ridiculous. But speaking of something that's not, the Gripweeds.
I mean, yeah.
The Gripweeds. Okay.
Who will probably never make it into the Hall of Fame.
No, maybe not the Rock and Roll of Fame, but maybe the Jersey Hall of Fame somewhere down the line. This is a very,
that's a possibility.
Yeah, it's a very interesting band. For those of you that are not familiar with the Gripweeds, Tom, tell me if we're reading this right. From what I listened to, I think you guys are very, very Beatles and Kinks sounding. Would you say that's a good read?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Are those your influences?
I think so.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Yeah. I mean, I thought like a song like Lies, well,
that's a cover.
Yeah, that's a great cover.
Yeah. That's originally by a band called the Knickerbockers who were a Jersey band.
Did you ever release that as a single?
We actually, no, we didn't. But we recorded it originally as part of a compilation to benefit Hurricane Sandy. That's why we did it. And it was Jersey artists doing, Jersey tributes. And we thought we'll do that one because they were from Knickerbocker Avenue in Dumont, New Jersey, where we grew up. So that's why we did the song. And the Knickerbockers who recorded it, they thought it was the Beatles.
That was a great cover. I love that. I thought that really I think showed off the band. I really thought that was good. And speaking of the band, what's it like playing in a band with your brother and your wife, and actually touring with them?
Well, it's good. It's actually good. It's very stable in a way, especially with my brother, because it's even though we've had our disagreements, we can't really leave each other. I mean, we could, but we're not gonna. And our influences go back to our childhood, and they're shared. So there's a lot of stuff that we innately know about each other. That if I write a song, I'll go, "Yeah, Rick, you know what I'm doing here. It's that thing," and he'll go, "Oh yeah, sure," and he'll know exactly. And then Kristen, it's really great to be able to go on tour and have my wife there. And she was a musician before she was my wife. And we were in rival bands or, bands that were contemporaries of each other in New York City. And so I knew her as a musician first. And then we thought, we had the first guitar player was not working out in the Gripweed. So we thought, let's bring her in. And at first I was a little bit like, well, I don't know if we should do that. And because, boyfriend, girlfriend. And honestly, the original Gripweeds format was kind of the old rock and roll standard, four young guys with long hair and guitars. That was kind of it. And bringing the woman in was like, oh, that's going to change the the mold. And we thought, well, we got to do it because she's so good. And she's actually probably the best musician of all of us, truth be told. So it's
right answer, by the way.
Yeah, hopefully she'll be listening to this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Good answer, Kurt. You're smooth.
Well, I mean it. It's easy when it's true, and and it also gave us a uniqueness. Even though nowadays it's not as unique to have females in the band, but what is unique still is that she's a lead guitarist. And every time we go and play a show where the club doesn't know who we are, always what will happen is that we'll show up and the sound guy will go, okay, so she's the singer, right? And no, I'm the singer. And who's the drummer? And I'm the drummer. And she's the lead guitar player. And by that time, their brain is scrambled.
Well, that is a uniqueness.
So yeah, it's stupid in this day and age, but it is what it is.
You and your brother start the band. Were you playing in high school?
Yeah, my brother got his first drum set when he was about 10 years old. Or 11, I would say, 10. My parents got him a drum kit for Christmas. And I remember seeing the drum kit and going, I was 7. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And looked at it for maybe 6 months, and then eventually I made my way back there and started playing. And then I started avoiding the neighborhood football games so I could play drums, because it was a whole lot more fun, and I wouldn't get hurt. So I played drums instead. And by the time I was 13, I could play. But my brother was a drummer and I was a drummer.
Were you self-taught?
So we never, pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
So we were never like in the same band for the longest time until we started to realize the crap bands we were in, because the guitar players were, whatever they were doing wasn't what we wanted to do. And my brother and I also played guitar. So we started to think, well, how can we get more control over this music we want to make and do what we want? Well, I guess one of us has to switch, unless we want to try to be the Allman Brothers, and we didn't really want to do that with 2 drummers, So we decided not to go that route, and one of us switched to guitar, and it was really like drawing straws. Like it was kind of the short straw has to play drums. So I got the short straw, and I'm like, well, I love the drums anyway, And it was not an ego thing at all. It was like, well, I don't mind it, and I thought, well, eventually we'll probably switch it up. I'll come out front, he'll go back, and we'll do that. But that never happened. And then 3 decades go by, and I'm writing songs for the band on guitar, I'm playing, but I'm still in the back of the band on the drums. I'm like, can I play a song? and it was like that for the longest time. And now it's like a bit we do live. I say that, basically what I just said. And then I come out and play a song on guitar. So it's kind of a little fun we have. But, we're both, that's how we had to do it to play together.
How are you self-taught? I know you self-taught on guitar as well.
I had a few lessons on guitar, but a lot of it, honestly, is listening and watching. I mean, I think the Beatles would even say, they were self-taught for the most part, except for when they go into a music store and somebody would show them something, or they were watching Little Richard, at the Liverpool Empire or wherever he was. And they're like watching his band and going, oh, that's how they play the B7, or that's how he's singing that, and it's a lot of really paying attention to how it's done. And if you listen, if you have your eyes open, especially me in the studio, because I'm the 5th band member of every band that comes in here. And a lot of times, a number of times it's been people who are, pretty well known. And so I get to kind of not even eavesdrop, just be part of the band on how they do what they're doing. And before you know it, you're being schooled on how to really sing, or how Jim Babjak from the Smithereens gets his guitar sound, and how he plays the chords.
Yeah, but Kurt, hold on a second. It's one thing to watch Jim play guitar and you're in the studio, okay? But then how do you know where to put your fingers? How do you know what like how do you
Jeff,
do that?
mean, there's ways. Like I used to spend all my allowance on Guitar World magazine or a tablature book.
Go. Yeah,
but
and they teach you and it shows you, it breaks it down how, what notes you got to play, what chords you got to play. So once you have the basic idea of where chords are, and then you can put together a couple songs. I mean, if you know how to play a bar chord, you can play any Ramones or Green Day song that's ever been recorded.
Once you get a little bit of knowledge, like especially you learn the chord shapes of the root chords, and once you get that, and then somewhere along the way, someone opens up like, oh, this is a bar chord. And you go, oh, and you
how long does that take?
How long does it take? I don't know.
7 days, Jeff. It's only 7 days to learn everything.
I've told students like Kristen, my wife has too, that like they'll be in a hurry. They'll be like, how long is this going to take me to get good? And I said, well, you know what? It's a life journey. You're starting to play. It's going to take what it takes, and you just have to put the time in. So it's not like by the time 6 months from now you're going to be a virtuoso. Probably not.
No.
It's a life journey. And I swear to God, I've been playing drums since I was about 8 years old, and I'm still learning. Stuff is still coming.
Right. It's exactly like stand-up too. It's exactly like stand-up in a way where you think about it. You can start off and you're building you're building up your jokes and you're learning how to do material and you're learning your timing and your pacing, and then you're starting to get to a point where then you can do the host spot, and then you've managed your way to get up to a feature spot, and then you go into your headliner, then you're going to doing your own club, then the theater. Right. So it's kind of like this constant buildup all the time, And he's right. I mean, exactly. I'm a different guitar player than I was when I was 12. I'm a different comic than I was 15 years ago.
That's it, and there's a lot of things that. It's like doors are opened, or like, you get these realizations like, oh, that's how I should be doing it. Like I probably spent a good 20 years singing not the right way and kind of maybe blowing my voice out sometimes until I realized through working with some people like Mark Lindsay from Paul Revere and the Raiders, I'm like, oh, that's how you do it. So you don't want to get into that. Out. You access into the higher register. And it's something you got to learn, and it doesn't come overnight. It's not like, all of a sudden you get it, but you have to work on it. But it's these little things that open up to you. And if you're smart enough to see them and incorporate them, then you get to the higher place. And it's like, when you get to a plateau, you're kind of like, oh, okay, now that you're up here, you can see what there is to see because you're at a level as a musician. You kind of go, oh, now I see where I can go from here. So there's another level. So I'm hoping that I just stay on this level of learning all the time. And I'm just doing the best I can, like I've always done.
How much time do you spend practicing, especially early on?
Well, not that much, actually. More time, like if I'm practicing, I'm listening for sounds and I'm kind of just playing a beat or I'm just maybe working out something tempo-wise. And I'm doing small things now, but a lot of it's in the head too. Or I'll do vocal scales. See, I'm a singer, drummer, guitarist, and I play piano. So I'm doing all these different things, like trying to build up my chops on each thing and stay in the zone on each instrument. And it really is just kind of like staying with it and not letting it sort of get too far out of the picture. Like, if you get into something for a while, sometimes you get into, I don't know, you're studying something and then you kind of get cold on it. You go do something else. But I try to keep up on all my disciplines, so it's just that way I stay fresh. I stay flexible, but also I stay in shape, like physically, so that I can play the drums and I have the air to play the drums, and all those things. So it's like, for me, it's a lifestyle, really.
So being a multi-musician like you are, I mean, how much does that help you as a producer when you're recording other people's records?
A lot. And sometimes it could be a curse because I'll have the guitar part in my head that they should play. And you have to know when not to suggest it or correct them, because it's like you might have the answer, but sometimes they need to work through to find the answer. And sometimes, in their defense, their answer might be better than yours. So
hold on a second. You're bringing up something really good here that I don't want to let go of. And that is, how much of it is your influence, or are you just recording them? Or as like what? I guess the heart of the question is, what does a producer do, and what makes a good producer?
Really good question. If you're talking historically, what a producer would do is he'd be given a budget from the record label, like a George Martin, right? George Martin would be given the budget from the record label. You can't spend you can only spend X amount of dollars. You got to get it done in this time, and don't waste a lot of time in the studio. So you're the guy that's setting the pace, and you're going to bring it in on time, under budget.
Are you behind the soundboard, or are you just kind of like, are you just facilitating, like kind of being like the head coach?
I'm talking historically, and historically in the past, when the music industry was functioning fully, you had an engineer who pushed the buttons and the faders, and then you had a producer standing behind him, kind of overseeing, going, yeah, that's good. Or how about a little more of this? Or, maybe you need a little more balance. So you had a guy, guy working the dials, producer behind him, band out in the playing performance room, making the music, right? And everybody had their jobs. You had an A&R guy, artist and repertoire. He was feeding songs. He'd go, you guys should play this song. Let me suggest this song for you. So you'd have this guy feeding the songs, producer running the whole show, engineer getting the sounds, band making the music. That's how it used to work. Now, in the group leads, I wear all those hats. I'm in the studio.
Well, that's good, because you're saving yourself some money. You don't have to hire an engineer. You don't have to hire a producer. You're the guy, and you're also the musician, and you're the songwriter.
Well, exactly. So now it's like the band is doing everything. The lunatics are running the asylum. But in order to make that happen, we had to spend years and years and years to develop our crafts, like in all ways. We were in studios before. We worked with some producers, not too many. And we eventually had to figure it out. And the way we figured it out was we started with making our own demos. A demo is like, your home version of what you're going to record. Yeah. You write a song, you make a demo.
It's a scaled version.
Sketch. Yeah, it's like a sketch. And then you take that demo and say to your band or to your producer, whoever, this is what I have in mind, but I want to make a record out of this, right? And so we were making these demos, and eventually we decided, well, the demos are kind of pretty close to the recording. Why don't we just make them better? And that's when we started getting more equipment. And actually what happened was we actually our first release was 4-track demo recordings. And we put it out on an EP, a vinyl, a little 45. And
how many years ago was that?
That was in the mid-90s. So how many years ago is that? Is that 30 years?
That's over 30 years ago.
Yeah, 30 years. It's going by. Time is going by. But anyway, so we put it out, and that was our first thing. And the bands that we were playing with.
You didn't put out a single?
Oh, no. We had cassettes too. That's true.
The singles were shit because they were so light that they kept getting caught up in the machine.
We never thought a cassette was a real release. It wasn't a legit release. We thought, you got to have vinyl at the time, because I guess there were CDs too. But vinyl
in the 90s, absolutely.
There were, yeah.
Yes.
And our first album was a CD as well. So, but when we put out the vinyl, we started getting notice from the other bands that we were playing with. And it was like, oh, can you record us? We're like, yeah, sure. I think we could. And that was when we went the next step to becoming on the other side of the glass as like an actual producer or an engineer, and doing it for someone else, which means you're getting paid.
Yeah.
And once you cross that whatever threshold, well, then your mindset changes. I remember actually being a little physically ill when I started out for the pressure of having to do this and make sure that you get something that's usable and you're not wasting people's money, and there's a lot of pressure involved. But now I'm much more comfortable with that role. So I can't remember what your original question was.
Well,
there's probably a couple of them in there.
There were, but every time you say something, you bring up something that's interesting. So you're a singer, musician, drummer. You're obviously you've had success with the producing as well. Who would you rather be? Would you rather be Don Henley or Mutt Lange?
There are times when I would rather just be Don Henley out in the room playing. But then part of the way I write a song and the way we write songs in the Gripweeds is I have a recording in mind. So when I'm writing a song, a lot of times if I'm thinking it up and before I write it, I'm thinking it. Maybe I'm out on a jog, I'm running, and I'm like, I got a whole sonic picture in my head. So I'm hearing the song. And then I got to translate it into reality. And that translation starts with an acoustic guitar. Then you flesh it out with vocal and lyrics. And then you flesh it out with how does the bass go? How does the drums go? What are the lead guitar parts? And that's where the band comes in and fleshes everything out. But the guiding hand is still my original idea of what the song could be, and trying to achieve that. So that's how I write the songs, at least the songs that I write. And I do have a production in mind. So someone asked me that very question once of how would you feel about having a producer work with you? And I thought, wow, that would be a real luxury. But, it's a real handoff because I really love to birth the track and make it become what it is.
That's got to be a huge decision on your part, because it's so personal to you. And then
you understand, like everything that he's saying is exactly what we do as well too. We can have, and I'm saying this too from even like a songwriting point of view as well.
Well, you see it on both sides, Sean.
I see it on both sides. What I'm trying to say is for like this, think of it this way: you have an idea for his bit. You know exactly in your head how this joke is a $1 million joke, right? It involves a didgeridoo, right? You realize that this joke is a winner, right?
I have a great joke about a didgeridoo. Kurt, you got to come and see me sometime.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
I recorded a didgeridoo.
Of course you did. Sean didn't know what a didgeridoo was until he saw my bit.
So then you have this grandiose idea, but then you have to realize you can't just go from A to Z. You got to fill in all those little gaps with little tags and add-ons and your buildups and stuff like that. So writing a great joke is exactly the same as writing a song.
Well, there you go. The thing about it is, though, is if you get too insulated, like if you don't have outside viewpoints, if you don't have any perspective other than your own, that can be very dangerous. And it could also be wasteful because maybe when the song is done, it doesn't measure up and you didn't listen to anybody. So you've got no other viewpoints, and that can happen. That is a major problem these days with people working in their bedrooms, like musicians working, in their own little cocoon. They don't have the outside viewpoint.
Yeah, but you got the luxury that a lot of these bands don't. You're living with someone in the band. So,
exactly.
does your wife will say to you, hey, have you ever thought about this? Or does your brother who has the connection with you, do they add their 2 cents in?
My favorite thing to do actually is, let's say a band is coming in to work. Before we start, I'll go, hey, give a listen to this. And maybe it'll be one of our songs. Because what I want to get, and I saw Pat from the Smithereens do this. Pat, before he passed away, Pat Denizio, obviously. If you can get an honest viewpoint from somebody about how your music is hitting, then you've got some valuable information.
Absolutely.
That's what you need. Like, it's okay to, I could say, I've thought this song up and I know what the vision is and I God, I have it all. I have it all figured out. But when you play that song for somebody, does it work? Does it move them, or do they go, I don't know, And that's what I look for. It's about a minute. It takes 1 minute. You watch them, they play the song, and you watch for when they check out and when they lose interest. And right there you go, okay, I don't have it. All right, what did I not do? How can I make this stronger? What am I missing? And that's the viewpoint I'm always looking for, because I don't have that. Unless I put the song away for a while and then pick it back up, and then maybe I'll get it, But it takes a long time. If you make a record, it takes a while to pull that record out and go, oh, I could have done that better. Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? And it's the viewpoint of the cold listen. It's for you guys to be like, the audience member has no axe to grind. He's out there. Does he laugh? Is he moved? Did you hit him? Or if you didn't, go back and do something better.
But you've also have had the luxury of working with some really monumental guys.
Yes.
Have you ever discussed this with Brian Wilson, who I know you worked with, and I know you I think you toured with Mark Lindsay from Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Yeah.
I mean, so did they ever give you any type of insight tips? Something that you took with you that you're able to like apply to your band and the other bands that you produce?
Well, not so much Brian personally. With Brian, I didn't get to know him personally very well. I spent one day with him, and another 2 times actually after that.
That's still incredible, because I mean, we just say, and Sean, you too, we just say that he's the greatest American songwriter.
He's one of them, if not.
He's right up there.
I mean,
yeah.
you go Dylan, Springsteen, and Brian Wilson. Would you say those are the top 3?
Major influence on my work and on my, when I was a kid, I just loved the Beach Boys, and and it's the type of music that you can grow up with and you can grow old with, because it's so
totally
good,
Totally.
So while I didn't learn anything directly from him telling me, I learned a whole lot from him just by soaking it in. Mark Lindsay is someone who I worked with very closely, both in the studio and live. So I learned a whole lot on both sides of that.
How does that come about? Because you're a Jersey guy. How do you hook up with Mark Lindsay?
Well, he came to New York to do it was called Cave Stomp, which they were putting on in New York City, and it was a garage rock festival. And he was.
Did Van Zandt have a hand in this?
Well, he was there, and yes, he did. So it was before the Underground Garage Show, not that long before.
Okay.
Right before. It was right after 9/11. It was the month after. So what happened was Mark was putting a band together to play New York. And he got a guy who I knew. And I happened to make a short list of drummers. Number 1 drummer was Clem Burke from Blondie.
Oh, great. Yeah. I remember Clem Burke from years ago. Sure.
Yeah. Great drummer. I love him.
He used to play in another local band. Oh my God. What he had a side project after Blondie. What was it called?
I don't know. But
The Colors.
Okay. Yeah. He's had a lot of.
Yeah. I used to go see them.
He's done a lot of different things, but Blondie was his main, obviously, claim to fame. But anyway, he was on the left. He was on the West Coast, and his wife said, "You're not flying. It's 9/11. I don't want you up there. You can't go." So Clem's off the list. Number 2, Dennis Dykin from the Smithereens.
Great.
He had a gig that night. So no, can't do it. So I was number 3. So I'm like, oh, Mark Lindsay, New York City? Yeah. Okay. So I took the gig, and I remember it being very, the city really smelled of the Twin Towers had come down. It was still in the air.
Yeah.
Who knows if I got sick from that? You never know. But anyway, I learned Mark and I just sort of hit it off right away at that time. And we did the show. We did another 2 shows after that. And then I didn't see him for a while. And then I saw him a couple of years later. He hired me again to do something. And then I didn't see him for another few years. And then he came to do, we were making a Christmas record. And it was the Gripweeds Under the Influence of Christmas that we were doing. And we decided we're going to let guests in. Gripweeds are very self-contained. We usually don't have anybody else playing anything because we all play. But this time we thought, let's get some guest artists. We've never done that. So we got the Smithereens. We got a couple of local guys and stuff, and some legends. And I called Mark, and Mark was like, I said, I wrote a song for you to sing. And I wrote it, and I thought, the only guy to sing this is the guy who sang Hungry. Hungry for the good things, baby. That song. That's the guy. That's what I want. That attitude of punk. So I called him up, and he's like, "Sure, I'll do it." And I thought, wow, that's cool. Glad he remembered me at all. So he comes over, he does the song, and he's like, I really like the studio.
Did you have to pay him?
No, he didn't want anything.
Oh wow!
So I was like, hey, I really like the studio. I'd like to work together again. I'm working on some stuff. I'd like to do something. So he brought me a project of his, and we started working on his stuff in the studio. And then we did another one, and then we did another one. And then came time for, he was doing some casino shows and he needed a band. And he thought of the Gripweeds to back him up. And that opened up a whole other thing.
Oh, you guys did it?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, you all did it. Okay.
The band backed him up, and we're going to back him up again next year. And that was really good for our growth as a live band.
Oh, definitely.
To work behind a legendary singer, to be tight, know those songs inside and out cold, and deliver, to a paying audience that you got to make sure you're measuring up. It's got to be great. And, but in the studio is where Mark and I really hit it off as well, because he had produced those songs. He was the guy. He was there when Hungry, and he did all those songs. Like he was a co-producer or a producer of all those songs. And I always say, it's like he was walking Sunset Strip in 1967, rubbing shoulders with all those guys. He tells us one story about he's walking out the door of 16 magazine, having just seen Gloria Stavers for this and that. She told him how to dress. She was like his wardrobe person. And he goes, it was a monumental moment. I'm walking out, Jim Morrison's walking in. And I felt like, wow, I just passed the torch to Jim, and I'm done with the teen thing, And so to work with somebody who's got that kind of deep knowledge of the music that I love was just gold. So
what is the music that you love?
Well, right there, I love 60s. What?
Besides that, I mean, because the name of our show, and and before we run out of time, is called "Who's Your Band?" Okay. So, who is Kurt's band? Who do you love?
Well, it depends on what time period. I mean, I love the Doors. I love all the 60s stuff. I love music in the 70s. I love REM. I've loved. I like modern bands. I like, let's see. Well, I loved Oasis. All the stuff that they do.
Well, you relate to Oasis. Music.
Yeah.
You and your brother were in a band together.
Well, we always sort of joke about that. It's like, we have fights, but we don't have fights like that. We worked it out.
Maybe the Kinks did.
Close.
Yeah.
We came pretty close a few times, but.
Okay. So if we
the Kinks was another huge influence on me too. And, but in all of that is like, those are the inspiration, like the Beach Boys. I like to go back to kind of the 60s stuff is very impactful for me. But
is that the best era of music for you?
There's a lot of influences I'll take from the 70s. ELO.
Love ELO.
60s.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. I mean, because we've debated this on the show as well. The best era of music, the best decade of music is what, Kurt?
Oh man, it's such a loaded question.
You got to answer. You can't.
They all have such great things to offer.
Of course they do. That's what makes it a hard question.
So like me, okay, I'm inspired by the 60s, 70s, even the 80s, and even the 90s, and Nirvana. I love Nirvana. And even that made its way into what we were doing. Because at the time, when you're an artist, when you're writing a song, you're reflecting on what's around you. So it's not like you're in a box of like, oh, I want to sound like 1965. Maybe I want to sound a little bit like 1965, but in 2024, I want to be current and part of the culture in our own way, But we have a strong tie to that music. You could probably say, yeah, all right, I'm going to give it to you, Jeff. The 60s would be my favorite because I think it was less calculated. The music industry wasn't quite as together. They were like, I think they were shocked at what the Beatles did. Like, whoa, where'd that come from? We thought that stuff was crap, and all of a sudden, whoa, there's money to be made. And then after that, it was like, wow, well, we can make more money. We'll put these guys on the road. And then FM radio. And, then they all got into it. But I don't think they really understood how the bands were doing what they did. So they gave them a long leash, They let the producers do what they did, make the music that was effective, And then it started to get ruined. Like, you ever see Aerosmith, Pump? Remember that album from the 80s, or was it 90 or something? And there's a video called The Making of Pump. And Aerosmith are trying to record their album. And they get these consultants that are wheeled and that come in. They show these consultants and they're listening to their music. No, you should make that more accessible. That chorus is no good. You got to hit this market and that market. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, you get a hit. But maybe it's not the pure statement from the band anymore. It's a calculation from the label to make money. Not saying that that's not a good record, because it is a good record. But
know what I could see you doing?
What?
You and your band. I could see you being like the band, or at least the songs in a movie like That Thing You Do.
Yeah. That would be right. That'd be great.
No, because because your sound is very catchy, very poppy, and who the band that did that was, right? That was Fountains of Wayne. That was
right. I'm just thinking Adam Schlesinger, as you say, Adam Schlesinger. Oh yeah, and he's an influence. More contemporary, but to us, but definitely an influence. And it goes back to what I was saying before, of where you're looking for what's going to hit people. You don't want to waste anybody's time. You don't want to be too self-indulgent. You still want to be quality, and you want to make sure that you've got your integrity. But you want to connect with the listener in a big way, if you can, somehow. That's what it's all about. And what you're doing is it's energy. There's all this stuff is energy. It's like it's waves of sound, which is energy. And you're just tweaking people. You're trying to like influence them a little bit. Oh yeah, I love that. Oh, it makes me feel good, or maybe it makes me feel like hitting something. Whatever it is, it causes a reaction. I think that's what we all want. A comedian, you want a reaction.
Well, we want one. We want one reaction.
Yeah.
A reaction.
I have a question. So playing out in the 90s, the New York City scene and the Asbury Park scene. What were the differences between those two scenes, knowing that you played both of them?
For me?
Yeah.
Well, I would say really a big difference. It depends. The New York scene that we were in was very much geared towards getting signed to a label in the 90s. It was very much like, who's going to be seeing you? And you got to make sure you get the industry people out to check out the band, and the radio people, and blah, 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 blah. And, you've got to get these people to come see you, and fill the place. And I think there was less of pressure to do that down the shore in Asbury Park. It was a little bit more, let's have a party. Come on, Bruce Springsteen. It was more of that to me, having done both and having still do both. We're playing in, we're just going to do a show on Friday, but this will air later. So we will have done the show on Friday in New York City, which we're looking forward to. But
yeah, I was going to say, tell us about what's the future plans of the Gripweeds. Where can people follow you? How could they go see a Gripweed show? Tell us a little bit more Gripweeds.
Well, I would say the best place to start there is just go on the internet, type in Gripweeds. We're pretty much the only one. Gripweeds.com is our website. Facebook, the Gripweeds. Twitter or X, whatever. We're on all the social media accounts, and if you just type in the Gripweeds or Gripweeds, you'll find us. And we're pretty. We like to keep things current as far as letting people know what we're doing. And what we're actually doing right now is making a new album, which has taken up a lot of our time to get it right. We want it to be good, and all the stuff I was just talking about is pretty much what I do on a daily basis. And it's the thought process of how can we make this music stronger? That's what it is. It's like, we got the song, but how do we make it stronger? And
now hold on a second. Now, what I heard on 101.5 FM, that was a new song, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's a good song.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, that's an example of what we're doing in the studio now, and just we're drawing on all our life experience to knock this out of the park. That's what we're trying to do, and not screw it up.
When will this record be finished?
Well, we're actually got a lot done on it, so it's going to come out in March. That's the plan, which means we have to finish it up in December, which we will be able to do. We just have to a few things we're still working on.
And then after the
great part about living and playing in this era that we are now is like you don't have to wait 3 years to put out an album.
Yeah.
Why is that, Sean?
Because people are just cutting songs. Like
they're cutting songs, but sometimes they're not good. Like you take a guy like Tom Schultz of Boston, who was an off the charts perfectionist. And Mutt Lange, who would also 47 takes, for hand claps. Okay, so is it the industry, Sean, or is it the producer and the band that that every little minutia has to be exactly?
I don't know. I think it's a good mix of both, because like you'll have these artists who are putting out. I'm noticing too, and Kurt, I don't know if you see this too, that full length albums are getting a lot longer. They're more.
I would think they're getting less because people don't have the attention span.
No, I mean the amount of songs that I'm seeing albums that are doing at a minimum 16, 18, 20 songs on an album.
Well,
that's stupid.
I don't know, because what's happened is with the resurgence of vinyl, it's becoming. We're doing it because when we started making records, we were gearing it towards the CD. Vinyl was dying. So we were gearing it towards the CD, and the CD was 80 minutes of music, right? And we wouldn't be trying to fill the 80 minutes, but we actually did put out a double album, 83 minutes of music, which wouldn't make a single CD. But what I'm saying is the vinyl resurgence has made us go back to a 40-minute record, which is 20 minutes per side. That's the ideal sweet spot for vinyl. You don't want to go over 20 minutes, 22 minutes. You don't want to go too far beyond that because the sound starts to suffer. But that just happens to be a good length of time for the.
Your band doesn't write songs like that. You're not ELP. You're not doing an 11-minute
a number of songs. But the number of songs that we would put on a record, will add up to 45 minutes or whatever it is, And we don't want to go too far over that. And it just so happens that they actually got it right with vinyl. Vinyl's a good length of time for a listener not to get bored.
100% agree with that.
They got to flip the record over 20 minutes. If you can hold them for 20 minutes, you're doing something.
Yeah, I mentioned Jelly Roll before. Like 2 weeks ago, he puts an album out, right? It's 22 songs. Hold on. It gets better. The next day, he releases the deluxe version with 7 more songs. 29 songs. Listen, I'm going to be
honest. How many
honest
good
with you.
songs, Sean?
Honest to God, there was about 7 of them that all sounded exactly the same to me. and I liked the dude. And out of 29, he had a really solid 13, 14 songs.
Yeah, you don't need that many, but you edit. It's again like comedy, editing, the economy of words. Make it short. People don't have the attention span anymore.
But you know what's happening with that? There's Spotify playing a game. They're playing into Spotify.
Right.
People putting on their album, playing all 22 songs, and ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Even though you only get a fraction of a cent per play, which is criminal, by the way, at least you're getting, if you can get your fans to play it, and play it, and play it, and play it, and play it, 22 songs times 1 million plays, well, you've just made a good chunk of money. So that's probably why they're loading it up more than we're going to lose them.
I hate the way, because we didn't talk about this, but right out of college, that was my first job. I worked A&R for CBS Records. Okay,
right? Yeah, you're telling me.
Yeah, and I hate what the record company, the record business has become. It's completely reversed the way it used to be.
Yeah, it's totally reversed. But it's, where the keys of the kingdom, they used to hold them and hold them over your head.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Now,
but also what they did, they provided a service, because now you don't have to go on the internet and listen to, thousands of shit. And they kind of edited it out and gave you what they thought was going to be like. And sometimes they got it wrong. There was a lot of times they got it wrong, but then there was also a lot of times they got it right and saved people a lot of time.
They dropped the band.
Well, have you ever heard of a band called New Man?
No.
Well, New Man was a band that because I wound up graduating in the late 80s, so they were kind of like a mid to late 80s band. They wound up getting signed. They won Best Band out of Boston. They put out their first record. They barely sold 10,000 copies, and you never heard of New Man again. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what would happen. And they were lucky that they actually got the record released, because I can tell you other horror stories of bands getting the budgets and like going to make their first album, and then the label saying, no, we're not going to put it out. We're dropping you. And you can't take your album and go home. You lose.
That's right. That's right.
That's
yeah.
This is actually, in that sense, this is better, because, we're captains of our own ship. It might not be the Titanic. Well, no, not the Titanic. The Queen Mary.
You don't want to be the Titanic.
Be Queen Mary, but it's a good ship. And we own it.
Okay, so we're going to end, because we got 2 minutes. We're going to end on this question. Sean, ask a final question that we always ask.
Oh, okay. So
and especially Kurt is the perfect guy to answer this question. And no bailing out. You can't take you can't do the weave.
Right.
Kurt.
Yeah, don't be a bitch. Answer this the right way. Okay?
I'll do my best.
You don't have to say your wife. You don't have to say your brother. You get to pick and be in your all-time favorite band. You get to pick the drummer, the guitar player, the bass player, the singer, the keyboard, whatever. What is the band, and what do you play in it?
Oh, so you're looking for me to put together a band?
Your supergroup. Your supergroup.
My supergroup. Well, okay, I got to have Paul McCartney on bass.
Okay.
About it.
All right, already this is a good band.
Yeah. I'm going to put on drums. Well, that would be me. If I'm in the band.
You're in the band.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to play drums, guitar player. Well, it's a tough one here. But I'm going to go with my good buddy Jim Babjack on guitar, because he's so good. And then second guitar will be Pete Townsend.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
So
I don't think we've ever gotten that answer before, Sean.
Paul McCartney, Pete Townsend, Jim Babjack, myself on drums. I'm in ridiculously stupid company here, but let's see. So keyboard. So I pick the keyboard player. Well, I'll pick. Oh boy. Maybe I'll pick. Well, you guys probably don't even know who this is. Rod Argent from the Zombies.
Yeah, we know who Rod Argent is. He was in the Zombies.
I'll pick Rod Argent for keyboard.
This guy.
And then vocals, oh man, vocals. Well, the best singer of all time, John Lennon. He's living or dead, right?
Oh, come on. You can't. You can go with two Beatles.
I can't do it. All right.
So, you could, but I mean, come on. And already, this is an insanely great band.
It's a great band, but like again, as everybody else in the world is like, fuck Ringo and fuck and
Harrison
and George Harrison.
But I love both of those guys.
But he's the drummer, so Ringo can't be in the band.
That's right. Or I could come out front. I'll sing. Ringo plays drums.
Oh, no, what happens now? John gets shifted over to guitar, and poor Jim Babjack.
Now, who really ruins
Babjack?
I loved it. See, Jim was on this show too. You know, no, he was great. He's such a good
he did.
dude.
He was on there.
Oh yeah, he's
tell you
awesome.
Though, there was a time when we were recording. I'll make this quick. We were recording Mark Lindsay, and he just did a vocal, and we're sitting there, and I had this realization. Now, Mark he had I think it was number one, Indian Reservation.
Oh yeah, Cherokee People.
Cherokee People. Yeah. Great song. I used to love that song when I was a kid.
Yeah, has that great bass and drum. That boom.
It's great.
Boom. Yep.
The whole thing is amazing. So here's Mark Lindsay in the studio, and he puts down this vocal, and we're looking at each other in the control room going, holy shit, you know? And now I get it. This guy, you know, we're just a bunch of like kind of average mules in a barn. And the stallion just walked in, and he's showing what he really can do. Pitch perfect. The guy's amazing. His voice is, and he was 70.
Why don't you make him your singer?
Well, maybe I will. Okay. Mark Lindsay.
I love it. Now that's a super band.
That's a super group.
Kurt, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, and you too.
A lot of fun.
We really appreciate it. You know, real great insight into stuff. Guys, please check out the Grip Weeds album coming out in March. Will be done in December. Look for their dates. Look for tour dates.
We're going to do stuff around the album, so we'll be playing out.
Yeah, go. And if you want to record your own album, we have a studio, House of Vibes Studios.
houseofvibes.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Talk to me. I'll discuss it all with you. But we don't take everybody. We take music that we feel we can, work with.
I love that.
Not taking like a rap artist because it's not really my genre. So I'm profiling you as much as you're profiling me to see if you want to work with me. That'll work. Then you get something that's great. If you're all comfortable. It's not a job for me. It's like what I want to do.
Yep, I hear you.
We appreciate your time. Thank you so much again, Kurt. Kurt Reil, everybody.
Thank
you.
Kurt
Reil, the Grip Weeds. Check them out. Guys, this is Who's Your Band. Remember, please, again, follow, subscribe, comment, like, all that stuff. That helps more than you think. We'll catch you next time on Who's Your Band. Thank you, everybody.